After the attacks on Pearl Harbor, anti-Japanese paranoia ran rampant in the United States. Fear that Japanese Americans would help the enemy attack from within was real, and because of this, Japanese Americans along the West Coast suffered discrimination. On February 12, 1942, without any probable cause, Franklin Roosevelt issues the Executive Order 9066. The military established militarized zones along the West Coast. Japanese Americans were forced to leave their homes at the point of a gun and move to these closed camps. Within weeks, 110,000 Japanese Americans from California, Oregon, Arizona, and Washington were moved to internment camps. 2/3 of them were Nisei, or first-generation Japanese Americans. They were only able to bring what they could carry, and many lost their homes and their businesses. For those Japanese Americans who didn't lose their home, when they returned from the camps, they found the homes ransacked, trashed, and vandalized. In 1944, the Supreme Court heard a case, Korimatsu versus the United States. Fred Korimatsu was a Japanese American who was interred with his family during the war. He challenged the constitutionality of Japanese internment and the violation of his civil rights. However, in their decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the forced relocation of Japanese Americans was justified on the basis of military necessity or national security. The Supreme Court essentially stated that based on the evidence provided at the time, the United States and government interred Japanese Americans to protect the war effort from potential espionage and sabotage.
Allied troops liberated Nazi death camps on the Western and Eastern fronts. The Soviets were the first to find the atrocities of concentration camps in Poland. 6 million Jews were killed in mass executions in concentration camps. To cover up the evidence, Germans cremated and buried massive amounts of bodies. Prior to these discoveries, FDR had been reluctant to accept Jewish refugees to America. He allowed Jews of special merit, such as Albert Einstein and Robert Oppenheimer, to enter America, but denied the average refugee. The Holocaust was one of the most tragic atrocities in the history of the world.
With the prospects of huge American losses, Truman turned to the alternative, the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was a top-secret nuclear program that only a few people knew about. In fact, Truman only found out about the Manhattan Project once FDR died and he was made president. Robert Oppenheimer and other project leaders worked to make the atomic bomb ready for the United States by summer 1945. When it was ready, President Truman convened a group of advisors to debate using it. They decided that the lives and damage caused by the atomic bomb would still be less than that caused to the United States forces by an invasion of Japan, meaning dropping the atomic bomb would actually save lives because the number of American casualties would far outweigh the number of Japanese casualties on the ground. Ultimately, President Truman decides to drop the bomb on a Japanese city without warning. The city that would be chosen would be an industrial city and not heavily populated. This would act as a demonstration of the potential of American weaponry to further convince the Japanese into surrender. The United States obviously could have bombed a city like Tokyo and killed millions, but that wasn't the intention. The intention was to get the Japanese to surrender.
In July of 1945, the United States, England, and the Soviet Union meet in Potsdam, Germany in their last wartime meeting. The goal of this conference is to focus on post-war Germany and the Japanese surrender. In regards to Japan, Big Three issue an ultimatum. Japan must surrender unconditionally or face prompt and utter destruction.
Under the Potsdam Declaration, Japan does not reply to the Allies, even under the threat of utter destruction. So President Truman authorizes the use of atomic weapons for the first time in world history. On August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber plane named the Enola Gay drops the atomic bomb named Little Boy on Hiroshima, Japan. 70,000 instantly die, and 35,000 Japanese are injured. Everything within a 1-mile radius of the bomb was instantly destroyed. Everything within 4.5 miles was instantly set on fire. The area was leveled and saturated with radioactive particles, meaning it was dangerous to live in.
While the world stood in awe of what had happened in Hiroshima, Japan still didn't surrender unconditionally. Truman authorized the use of a second atomic bomb. On August 9th of 1945, just 3 days following the attack in Hiroshima, the atomic bomb Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki, Japan. Over 40,000 died immediately. Thousands more were maimed or died of radiation in the years to follow. The radius of destruction was 1 mile, and the city was leveled and contaminated.
And finally, on August 15, 1945, unable to let his subjects suffer anymore, Emperor Hirohito tearfully addressed his nation and officially announced the unconditional surrender of Japan. Americans celebrate the day as VJ Day, or Victory Over Japan Day. American boys in the Pacific were finally coming home. The official surrender is signed aboard the USS Missouri on September 2nd, 1945, and the Allied powers are victorious.
There it is, the news you've been